Hi everyone. I hope you had a solid spring break and were able to de-stress a little bit. As we transition online, I want you to remember to cut yourself a little bit of slack. The move online might feel a bit funky and kind of clunky, but I'm super confident that we'll be able to get the hang of it. Today, we're focusing on identifying your stakeholder. So we're going to talk about some common issues that occur in Project 3, and then we're also going to look at the stakeholder profile, which will be due later this week. Before class today, you posted about your stakeholder on the Monday 323 discussion board. If you forgot, take a minute to post now. Remember that by 11:59 p.m. tonight, you have to respond to one classmate's discussion post. Try to respond to someone who doesn't already have a response so that everyone gets a little bit of feedback on this assignment. You should either tell them something you know about their stakeholder, ask them a question about their stakeholder, or both. For example, if someone were writing to legislators to discuss legalizing recreational marijuana, I might respond to their post by telling them about what it was like living in Colorado when recreational marijuana was passed. This is a unique experience that I can talk about, and it might get them thinking about their topic in a slightly different way. I would also ask them if they've identified any legislators in Oklahoma who support legalizing recreational marijuana. This is just a question that I have, but it might help them think about their topic. For each of your projects, I'm really interested in how we might argue to someone locally. So if you can, try to think of a question that does encourage your peer to think about Oklahoma or somewhere nearby, maybe Texas, something like that. This discussion post will help you think about your stakeholder and the best way to make an argument to them. Notice how I keep saying that you're making an argument to your stakeholder. If you look at the P3 prompt, you'll recall that the purpose is to persuade a stakeholder from Project 2 to change their mind or actions. This means that the stakeholder is your audience. Remember that this is different than Projects 1 and 2, where I was your audience. As you think about your stakeholder, keep in mind that you're not making an argument about your stakeholder. Making an argument about the stakeholder is something that can happen in the early stages of the writing process. So the paragraph that you see here is an example of writing about a stakeholder. In this Project 3, the writer is trying to convince video game companies that loot boxes need to be rethought overall. The introductory paragraph says, "In this paper, I would like to address the video game companies who consistently push to release loot boxes in their games. I'm going to talk about which companies are the primary culprit and try to get them to loosen up a little. To appeal to the companies, I'm going to try to appeal to their childhoods by talking about popular games from their time, like Sonic or Mario. In doing this, I hope to help companies like Capcom, Activision, and Tencent and become more understanding and at least give players transparency with their odds of winning. I understand that a business needs to make money, but is it worth the risk of losing the trust of gamers everywhere?" The writer does a couple of good things here. So they identify their audience, which is video game companies, as well as their general argument that loot boxes are causing gamers to stop playing. But the writer focuses on what he's going to do rather than actually doing it. He says, "I'm going to appeal to their childhoods by talking about popular games from their time." Here, he could jump into talking about the games and the video game companies that made them. While this type of writing can be helpful for brainstorming, and this might be the kind of writing that you have so far, this isn't what you want to end up putting in your paper. The audience in this paragraph, in this sample here, is me. And remember, we really want the audience to be those video game companies. So, what are the writer's next steps? The writer now needs to do some research. He might start by Googling Mario and finding a few sources that talk about why this was such a popular video game. He'll want to think about the video game company that made it and find sources from people talking about why they liked to play Mario. By doing this, the author has found 3 new sources. The first source is about the video game Mario itself. The second source is about the company that made Mario. And the third source comes directly from people explaining why they like to play Mario. This type of research will be helpful as the writer starts to make a stakeholder profile. So what is a stakeholder profile? A stakeholder profile is going to be a way for you to get a picture of the stakeholder whose mind you're trying to change. I posted a sample stakeholder profile on Canvas. You'll want to open and download this PDF so that you have an example to reference as you're working on your stakeholder profile. You can find it under today's materials on our homepage. It's called Sample Stakeholder Profile, Medical Marijuana. Your sample stakeholder profile will be 2 pages. This is the first page of the sample. On the first page, you need to include an image that represents the stakeholder and a list of key attributes. You can see that the writer includes an image of the Oklahoma State Capitol to represent her stakeholder like a profile picture. Then, she gives a bit of demographic information about the stakeholder group. So she tells us 47 senators in Oklahoma. Of those 47, 38 are Republicans and 9 are Democrats. On the right-hand side of the profile are 2 key attributes. She gives us where the senators are from and their educational experience. Then she includes their main beliefs and values. She decided on these 2 key attributes after reading some Senate profiles and recognizing the importance of where senators grew up and the type of education they have. The main beliefs and values also came from reading the Senate profiles. She identified common beliefs and values across multiple senators. So she's not citing where she gets that information, but you don't need to give direct citations for this. So as long as you're using your sources to kind of get a picture, you want to think about it that way because the writer uses several sources to create this profile. The second page of the stakeholder profile is a written reflection. The reflection identifies the stakeholder the writer is arguing to and how she decided to focus on that stakeholder. She then goes on to explain the information on page 1. The final paragraph of the reflection identifies how the stakeholder's beliefs and values will help the writer make her argument in Project 3. You'll make your own stakeholder profile, which is due on Friday, 3/27. Please look over this assignment on Canvas. I'll be looking for stakeholder profiles that include the following, and this also gives you an idea of how I will grade this assignment. So I'm looking for an image that represents the stakeholder. This is going to be worth 2.5 points. It should just be kind of a profile picture, some image that you think is representative of this stakeholder group. You need to include a list of key attributes and a list of beliefs and values. This is also worth 2.5 points. And then the final element is a written reflection, which needs to be at least 200 words that synthesizes the information you found and reflects on how this information helps you make your argument for Project 3. This is worth 10 points for a total of 15 points for the assignment overall. Again, this is due on Friday, 3/27, and it needs to be posted by our normal class time. The sample stakeholder profile is an excellent example of what I'm looking for, mainly because it meets the basic requirements of the assignment, but the design also takes it to the next level. This was designed in Canva, which some of you used when you made your history timelines for Project 1, so I know some of you are familiar with this. I recommend using Canva, but you could also use Microsoft Word or Google Docs. It doesn't have to be super fancy. I'm not grading the assignment based on design, but the design can factor into receiving extra credit for this assignment, which we'll talk about in just a minute. I will note that one thing the author forgot is her name. I didn't take off points for this, but you should include your name somewhere on the document itself. The second half of our stakeholder activity is reviewing your peers' stakeholder profiles. So after you post your stakeholder profile on Friday, you want to review your peers' stakeholder profiles. You'll be able to use the like feature on Canvas to vote on the best stakeholder profile. And you can choose the best stakeholder profile based off of a couple of things. You could choose it based off of who you think has the best designed profile, who has the best information overall, who has the strongest indication of how the profile helps their Project 3 research, or you could do a combination of these three elements. And you want to make sure that you get your vote in by 11:59 p.m. on Friday. That way I can look at it and we can talk about who had the best stakeholder profile and why. The person with the best stakeholder profile will also receive 5 points of extra credit on this assignment. Recap, today we focused on your stakeholder, aka your audience for Project 3. We looked at a sample introductory paragraph and a common issue in this assignment and introduced the stakeholder profile. For homework, you need to start working on your stakeholder profile. You need to have research to help you make the profile, so think about the next steps that I pointed out in the video game example from today. The stakeholder profile needs to be posted to the Friday 3/27 stakeholder profile discussion board by class time on Friday. You also need to read Project 3 Sample 1, Medical Marijuana, and complete the Wednesday 3/25 discussion post. In your discussion post, answer the following questions about the sample paper. What stakeholder group is the writer arguing to? What type of argument is the writer making? So is it fact, definition, argument, or proposal? Do you think the writer is successful in changing their stakeholder's mind? Why or why not? And finally, do you agree with the writer's argument? Why or why not? All of those questions are posted on the Wednesday 3/25 discussion board. So I'll be looking for those things after you've read through that sample project. So make sure that you highlight all of that information and write a short response to it.